Welcome. You made it back to the second part of this amazing story. If you missed the part 1, the link is in the description of this video. Go watch it now. Let's begin. Over the following month, Aria learned Luca in fragments. She learned he took his coffee black because adding sugar felt like admitting weakness. She learned he slept poorly, nightmares he refused to discuss, leaving him hollow-eyed and tense. She learned he was brilliant at mathematics, but hopeless at anything requiring emotional intuition. She learned he had virtually no friends, only associates and business contacts who served functional purposes. That's depressing, Aria observed one evening as they walked through the city after another failed cooking attempt. You need people in your life who aren't transactional. I have you. Luca laced their fingers together. The gesture still knew enough to send electricity through Aria's nervous system. That's improvement. One person isn't enough. Humans need community. Humans need a lot of things I've learned to live without. His tone carried something dark, a glimpse of depths Aria wasn't sure she wanted to explore. I'm functional, if not particularly well-adjusted. Aria wanted to push, to understand the shadows behind his eyes, but Mia called before she could formulate questions. Her sister's voice carried panic that sent ice through Aria's veins. I'm at the hospital, Mia said without preamble. I'm okay, but I had a seizure, and they want to run tests, and I don't know if insurance will cover it, and I'm scared. I'm coming. Aria was already moving, pulling Luca toward the street. Which hospital? Stay calm. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up, trying to calculate cab fare against her checking account balance, and coming up catastrophically short. Tears of frustration blurred her vision as she raised her hand for a taxi. My car's closer, Luca said, already on his phone. Vincent will be here in 3 minutes. Which hospital? Aria rattled off the name, gratitude and fear tangling in her throat. I can't afford this. The tests, the hospital visit, any of it. I'm so tired of not being able to afford my sister's health. Luca pulled her against his chest, one hand stroking her hair while the other continued coordinating logistics. We'll handle it. Together. No arguments. Luca, no arguments, he repeated firmly. Your sister needs medical care. Everything else is details we'll solve later. His car arrived, sleek and black, and utterly out of place on these streets. Luca ushered Aria inside, giving the driver instructions in a tone that brokered no delays. At the hospital, Mia sat in the emergency room, looking small and scared, in a way that broke Aria's heart. She rushed to her sister, pulling her into a fierce hug. I'm okay, Mia insisted, though she trembled. Just scared. The doctor says my medication might need adjusting. We'll adjust it. Aria smoothed Mia's hair, channeling calm she didn't feel. Whatever it costs, we'll figure it out. Luca appeared beside them, having somehow navigated hospital bureaucracy with the efficiency of someone accustomed to making obstacles disappear. They're moving her to a private room for observation and additional testing. Insurance will cover most of it. Aria stared at him. How did you... I made some calls. His expression was carefully neutral. Don't ask questions you don't want answered. She should push back, should refuse this assistance on principle. But Mia's health outweighed pride. Thank you. They spent the night in the hospital, Aria dozing in an uncomfortable chair, while Luca paced the hallway making calls in low, urgent tones. Aria caught fragments about account numbers and urgent transfers and persuasive language that sounded almost threatening. In the morning, a doctor confirmed Mia needed a medication adjustment and additional monitoring, but would be fine. The bill, somehow, was entirely covered by insurance that shouldn't have been adequate. You fixed this, Aria said. As they left the hospital, Mia discharged with new prescriptions and follow-up appointments. You called someone and fixed it. I made suggestions to people who could help. Luca's tone remained carefully neutral. Nothing illegal, just leveraging relationships. What kind of relationships allow you to manipulate hospital billing and insurance coverage overnight? The kind I prefer not to discuss in detail. He met her eyes, something pleading in his expression. Can we table this conversation? Your sister is healthy, The crisis is resolved, and I'd rather not ruin that with uncomfortable revelations about my professional life. Aria wanted to press, but exhaustion and relief made her acquiesce. Fine, but we're talking about this eventually. Eventually, Luca agreed, though his expression suggested he hoped eventually would never arrive. But 2 weeks later, eventually crashed into their relationship with the subtlety of a demolition crew. Aria was working late at Safe Nest Collective, reviewing grant applications in Monica's office, when she noticed irregularities in their financial statements. Money appeared and disappeared in patterns that made no sense. Transfers from accounts Aria didn't recognize funding programs they hadn't budgeted for. Monica? Aria called into the next room. Can you explain these transfers? The amounts don't match our approved budget. Monica appeared in the doorway, her expression cycling through surprise, calculation, and resignation. Those are private donations. Nothing to concern yourself with. Private donations that bypass our normal accounting procedures? Aria pulled up more files, dread building as she recognized patterns. These amounts are substantial. Why aren't they documented properly? Aria, leave it alone. I can't leave it alone. This looks like money laundering. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Monica, what's going on? Monica sank into a chair, suddenly looking decades older. It's complicated. Uncomplicated. Safe Nest was struggling 6 months ago. We were going to close, put dozens of vulnerable people back on the streets. Monica's hands twisted in her lap. Then someone approached me with an offer. They needed somewhere to move money quietly, and we needed funding. It seemed mutually beneficial. Ice crystallized in Aria's veins. Who approached you? I don't know names, just account numbers and instructions. But Monica wouldn't meet Aria's eyes, and the evasion screamed complicity. Aria pulled up more files, tracking transfers backward through financial breadcrumbs. The accounts led through shell corporations and offshore holdings, all designed to obscure origin, until she found a name buried in incorporation documents. Vitale Holdings. No, Aria whispered, the word inadequate for the betrayal crashing through her chest. No, this can't be right. But the evidence was irrefutable. Luca's company was funneling money through Safe Nest, using the non-profit Aria loved as a vehicle for whatever illegal enterprise he operated. She called him with shaking hands, fury and heartbreak warring in her throat. Aria. Luca answered immediately, pleasure warming his voice. I was just thinking about you. Did you use Safe Nest to launder money? She interrupted, each word precise and cutting. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Where are you? Answer the question. Not over the phone. Where are you? I'm coming to you. So you can explain how you've been lying to me since we met? Aria's voice broke despite her determination to remain controlled. You knew I worked there. You knew what it meant to me. And you used it anyway. Aria, please, yes or no, Luca. Did you use Safe Nest to move illegal money? Another silence, and Aria knew the answer before he spoke. Yes, Luca said quietly. But it's not what you think. Then what is it? Enlighten me about the acceptable version of financial crime. I'm coming to you. Don't make any decisions until we talk face to face. He hung up, leaving Aria holding a dead phone and fragmenting heart in Monica's office, while her world collapsed around carefully constructed lies. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, so you get notified for the next amazing stories. Like and comment. The most liked comment will get a shout out in the next story. Now let's continue. Luca arrived 30 minutes later, bursting into Safe Nest with the urgency of someone trying to prevent catastrophe. He found Aria in the common room, surrounded by printed financial statements that documented his betrayal in numbers and dates. Let me explain, he said, stopping several feet away like he understood approaching would be unwise. Explain how you've been using the non-profit I love as a front for criminal activity. Aria's voice remained level through sheer force of will. I'm fascinated to hear the justification. Luca ran a hand through his hair, agitation making him pace. It's not a front. The money is clean by the time it reaches Safe Nest. I use the organization as a final step in legitimizing funds that originate from complicated sources. Complicated sources, Aria repeated. That's a creative euphemism for illegal. Not illegal, morally ambiguous. He met her eyes, his expression stripped bare. I control financial networks that move money for people who can't use traditional banking. Some of those people are criminals. Most are just individuals trying to move assets without government oversight. That's money laundering. Literally the definition. Yes. Luca didn't flinch from the accusation. But it's also helping SafeNest stay operational and serve people who need it. The money you're upset about? It funded the new housing wing. It paid for medical supplies and job training programs. It kept the lights on when government funding dried up. Using illegal money. Aria stood, papers scattering. Don't you understand? This taints everything SafeNest does. If authorities discover this, we'll be shut down. Everyone we serve will suffer because you decided our mission mattered less than your convenience. I never thought of it as convenience. Luca's voice roughened with something that sounded like genuine anguish. I thought I was helping. Monica knew the money's origin. She made an informed choice. Monica was desperate. You exploited that desperation. I provided a solution that benefited both parties. You manipulated someone's crisis for your own purposes. Aria felt tears building but refused to let them fall. And you lied to me. Every day, every conversation, every moment we spent together, you were lying about who you are and what you do. I never lied about my feelings for you. Luca took a step closer, hands extended like he was approaching something fragile. Everything between us was real. How can I trust that? How can I trust anything you say when your entire professional life is built on deception? Aria backed away from his approach, needing physical distance to think. Who are you, Luca? Really? He stopped advancing, something breaking in his expression. I'm someone who was born into a world I didn't choose and learned to survive by becoming useful to dangerous people. I'm someone who moves money for organizations that range from ethically questionable to genuinely criminal. I'm someone who's very good at what I do and very bad at being a good person. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me now. His voice cracked, like I'm something contaminated. Like proximity to me might poison you. You've poisoned SafeNest, Aria said, and watched him flinch like she'd struck him. You've put every person we serve at risk because you needed somewhere to hide your dirty money. I can move the funds elsewhere. Immediately. SafeNest will be clean by tomorrow. That doesn't fix what you've already done. Aria gathered the financial statements, evidence she wasn't sure what to do with. I need you to leave. Aria, leave, she repeated, her voice breaking. I can't look at you right now. I can't reconcile the person I thought I knew with whoever you actually are. Luca stood frozen, devastation written across his face. I love you. I know I have no right to say that after lying to you, but it's true. I love you, and I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to be honest. The words should have meant something, but Aria felt numb. Love without honesty is just manipulation. Leave, Luca, please. He left, and Aria collapsed into a chair, finally allowing tears to fall as the last month replayed in her mind, every moment now tainted by knowledge of his deception. Monica found her an hour later, still crying in the empty common room. I'm sorry, Monica said, sitting beside her. I should have told you about the money's origin. I convinced myself the ends justified the means. Did they? Aria wiped her eyes, exhaustion settling into her bones. Did saving SafeNest justify partnering with criminals? I don't know anymore. Monica looked as tired as Aria felt. I just know I was desperate, and Luca Vitale offered a solution when I had none. He does that, Aria said bitterly, offers solutions that create bigger problems. She went home to find Mia waiting up, concern etched across her face. You look awful, Mia observed. What happened? Aria told her everything, from Luca's financial crimes to his manipulation of SafeNest, to the betrayal that felt like physical injury. I'm sorry. Mia said when Aria finished. That's awful. But Aria? He paid for my hospital visit. Those calls he made? He convinced his insurance contacts to reclassify my coverage. We would have been bankrupted without his intervention. I know. Aria's voice emerged flat. That's what makes this so complicated. He helped us. He helped Safe Nest. But he did it using money from illegal sources while lying about his entire existence. What are you going to do? I don't know. Aria stared at her ceiling, trying to find answers in acoustic tiles. Report him and destroy Safe Nest? Stay quiet and become complicit? There's no good option. She spent 3 sleepless nights wrestling with ethics and pragmatism, love and betrayal, before making a decision that satisfied no one, least of all herself. Aria wouldn't report Luca to authorities, wouldn't destroy Safe Nest to punish his deception. But she also wouldn't forgive him, wouldn't allow him back into her life, wouldn't pretend his betrayal could be overlooked because his money had helped people. She called him to deliver this verdict, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. I'm not reporting you, she said without preamble. But we're done. No contact, no explanations, no attempts at reconciliation. You lied to me about fundamental aspects of your identity, and I can't build a relationship on that foundation. Aria, please. No, she cut him off. You don't get to explain or justify or convince me to see things differently. You made choices that prioritized your convenience over my right to informed consent about who I was dating. That's not forgivable. I love you. Maybe you do. But your love comes with lies attached, and I deserve better than that. Aria's voice finally broke. Goodbye, Luca. She hung up before he could respond, blocked his number, and allowed herself one final crying session before deciding she was done wasting tears on men who treated honesty as optional. But Sebastian Hale, apparently, wasn't done orchestrating cruelty. 2 weeks after Aria ended things with Luca, she received a letter from Hale Industries' legal department. They were suing her for defamation, claiming she'd spread false rumors about Sebastian that damaged his reputation and business prospects. The lawsuit was baseless, revenge disguised as legal action, but defending it would cost money Aria didn't have. Sebastian knew this, was counting on it, weaponizing the legal system against someone who couldn't afford to fight back. Aria sat in her apartment, reading the lawsuit with mounting panic, when her phone rang from an unknown number. Don't answer Sebastian's lawsuit, Luca's voice said when she picked up. I'm handling it. I blocked your number. I know. I'm calling from a different phone because this is important. He sounded exhausted, defeated in ways that should have satisfied Aria's anger, but instead just made her sad. Sebastian filed that lawsuit because he knows I can't protect you anymore. He's retaliating for our relationship. We don't have a relationship. Past tense then. He's retaliating for our past relationship by attacking you through legal channels I can't directly interfere with without revealing information that would hurt both of us. Aria's grip tightened on the phone. So what am I supposed to do? Nothing. I've hired attorneys to handle your defense. They'll make Sebastian's lawsuit disappear, and he'll learn that hurting you has consequences even if you and I aren't together. I don't want your help. I know. But you're getting it anyway because I love you and I failed to protect you from becoming collateral damage in my world. Luca paused. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. I'm just ensuring Sebastian Hale doesn't destroy you to hurt me. He hung up before Aria could argue, leaving her with the uncomfortable knowledge that Luca was still trying to protect her, even after she'd exiled him from her life. The lawsuit disappeared within a week, Sebastian's lawyers abruptly withdrawing all claims without explanation. Aria received a formal apology from Hale Industries acknowledging the lawsuit's baseless nature and compensating her for emotional distress. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt hollowed out, exhausted by the constant warfare of existing in proximity to people like Sebastian and Luca, who wielded power as casually as other people wielded conversation. A month passed, then 2. Aria threw herself into work and classes, rebuilding Safe Nest's financial systems with Monica to ensure they could never again be manipulated by well-intentioned criminals. She avoided places she might encounter Luca, rerouted her entire life to prevent accidental meetings. But the city felt emptier without him, colors muted and conversations flat compared to the intensity they'd shared. Mia noticed, because younger sisters notice everything. You miss him. I miss who I thought he was, Aria corrected. The real Luca is someone I can't trust. People are complicated. He lied, which was wrong. But he also genuinely cared about you. Both things can be true simultaneously. I know. Aria stared at her textbook without reading. That's what makes this so hard. Then everything exploded in ways none of them anticipated. Aria was leaving campus after evening classes when black SUVs surrounded her. Men in suits emerging with badges that identified them as federal agents. Aria Chen? One asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Yes? We need you to come with us. We have questions about your relationship with Luca Vitale and financial irregularities at Safe Nest Collective. Ice flooded Aria's veins. Am I under arrest? Not currently, but your cooperation would be appreciated. She went with them because refusing seemed worse. Found herself in an interrogation room answering questions about money laundering and criminal enterprises for 6 hours, while lawyers she couldn't afford tried to protect her from implications she didn't fully understand. They wanted to know about Luca, about Safe Nest, about whether Aria had knowingly participated in financial crimes. She told them everything, holding nothing back, because lying to federal agents seemed categorically stupid, even if honesty might destroy people she'd cared about. Where is Luca Vitale? They asked as dawn broke outside small windows. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him in 2 months. When did you last see him? 2 months ago, when I ended our relationship after discovering his illegal activities. They asked the same questions 17 different ways, trying to catch contradictions that didn't exist because Aria was telling the truth. Finally, exhausted and legally advised, she invoked her right to remain silent until provided with proper legal representation. They released her with warnings about leaving the city and instructions to remain available for further questioning. Aria stumbled home to find Mia frantic with worry and Monica, leaving voicemails about federal agents ransacking Safe Nest's offices. They're building a case against Luca, Monica explained when Aria called back. Using Safe Nest as evidence of his financial crimes. We might be implicated as accomplices. I told them everything, Aria said numbly. About the money, about Luca's involvement, all of it. Good. Truth is our only defense. Monica sounded as exhausted as Aria felt, though it might not be enough. That night, Aria's phone rang from another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity overrode caution. They're coming for me, Luca said without preamble. Federal indictment. Multiple charges. I'll likely be arrested within 48 hours. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know you're safe. I've provided evidence that completely exonerates you and Safe Nest. The investigators will confirm you had no knowledge of my activities and no culpability in my crimes. Aria's throat tightened. You're protecting me. Always. His voice carried something broken. I failed you in many ways, Aria, but I won't fail you in this. You'll be fine. Safe Nest will be fine. I've made certain of it. What about you? I'll survive. Prison is just a different cage than the one I've been living in. He laughed without humor. Maybe it'll be refreshing. Walls that are actually visible for once. Luca, I love you, he interrupted. I know I've forfeited any right to say that, but I needed you to hear it one last time. Everything I did, every choice I made, was about trying to be worthy of you while knowing I never could be. That's not fair. Tears streamed down Aria's face. You don't get to make grand romantic declarations while accepting prison as penance. Life's rarely fair. I thought you of all people understood that. His voice softened. Be happy, Aria. Find someone honest who deserves you. Forget about the morally compromised man who loved you, but couldn't figure out how to love you honestly. He hung up, and Aria collapsed against her kitchen counter, sobbing for the loss of something that was never quite real, but felt devastating anyway. Luca Vitale was arrested 2 days later in a coordinated federal operation that made national news. The charges ranged from money laundering to racketeering to conspiracy, the kind of comprehensive indictment that guaranteed years in prison if convicted. Aria watched the news coverage in numb horror, seeing Luca led away in handcuffs while reporters shouted questions and cameras captured his humiliation for mass consumption. He looked exhausted, defeated, and somehow relieved, like finally facing consequences was almost a comfort. Sebastian Hale appeared on television that evening, giving interviews about Luca's arrest with poorly concealed glee. He positioned himself as an innocent victim of Luca's intimidation, rewriting history to cast himself as sympathetic rather than cruel. "I always knew something was wrong with Luca Vitale," Sebastian told reporters, his expression performing concern while his eyes broadcast triumph. "The way he manipulated people, the casual threats. I tried to warn people, but no one listened." Aria threw her remote at the television, rage momentarily overwhelming grief. Then, sitting in her apartment surrounded by evidence of Luca's complicated legacy, she made a decision. She'd been silent about Sebastian's cruelty, about the gala humiliation, about his attempts to destroy her livelihood through harassment and lawsuits. She'd remained quiet because fighting seemed futile against someone with unlimited resources and complete shamelessness. But watching Sebastian portray himself as Luca's victim, while Luca faced prison for actual crimes, felt like a bridge too far. Aria had documents. She had Sebastian's threatening emails, records of his harassment, witness statements from other service workers he'd humiliated. She had the video from the gala, footage of his deliberate cruelty and Luca's intervention. She also had a journalism degree she'd never fully utilized, and a network of local reporters who might be interested in a story about wealth and cruelty, and the casual destruction of working-class lives. So Aria wrote. She wrote about Sebastian's pattern of harassment, about the gala incident, about his systematic attempts to destroy anyone who witnessed his humiliation. She wrote about class warfare disguised as entertainment, about privilege weaponized against vulnerability, about the particular cruelty of people who'd never faced consequences learning to treat others as disposable. She provided evidence for every claim, built her case with journalistic rigor, and sent the resulting article to 5 local news outlets with the subject line, "The Real Sebastian Hale." 3 outlets published within 24 hours. The story went viral within 48. Social media amplifying areas documented evidence into a cultural conversation about wealth, power, and accountability. Sebastian tried to deny the allegations, but Aria had been thorough. Witnesses emerged corroborating her story. Other service workers shared their own experiences of Sebastian's cruelty. The video from the gala circulated despite Sebastian's attempts to suppress it, showing his deliberate humiliation and Luca's intervention in ways that contradicted Sebastian's victim narrative. Within a week, Sebastian was facing his own legal troubles, multiple harassment lawsuits, brand partnerships dissolving, and most devastating for someone like him, complete social exile from the circles that had previously celebrated him. Hale Industries distanced themselves from their son, issuing statements about not condoning his behavior and suggesting he seek professional help for his evident issues. Sebastian's fall was swift, comprehensive, and utterly satisfying to witness. Aria was giving an interview about her article, explaining how she documented Sebastian's harassment while protecting other victims' identities, when the TV studio received an unexpected call. "Someone named Luca Vitale is on the phone," the producer informed her. "Says he's calling from detention and needs to speak with you urgently. We can't put him on air, obviously, but—" "I'll take it," Aria interrupted, her heart racing. Privately, they provided a private office, and Aria picked up the phone with shaking hands. "You destroyed Sebastian," Luca said, and he was laughing, genuine joy breaking through exhaustion. "I'm watching the news coverage from my cell, and you absolutely destroyed him. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. He deserved it. He deserved worse, but this is an excellent start." Luca's laughter faded into something softer. I'm proud of you. You turned your pain into accountability. That's journalism at its finest. I learned from the best professors. Aria deflected, uncomfortable with his praise. You learned from your own integrity. He paused. I saw your article mention me. Thank you for being fair, despite having every reason to be vengeful. Aria had struggled with how to handle Luca in her piece, ultimately deciding that honesty served her purpose better than revenge. She'd acknowledged his intervention at the gala without absolving his crimes, presented him as complicated rather than simply villainous. I wrote the truth, she said. That seemed more powerful than character assassination. The truth, Luca repeated. Something I should have tried earlier. They fell into silence, the phone line carrying the weight of everything unsaid. My trial starts next month, Luca said finally. I'm pleading guilty to most charges. My lawyers think I can negotiate down to 7 years. 7 years. The number felt simultaneously too long and not long enough. Will you be okay? Aria asked, then immediately felt stupid for the question. Eventually. I've made arrangements to ensure SafeNest remains funded through legitimate sources. Monica has the details. Your sister's insurance will continue covering her medications. I've set up trusts that can't be traced back to anything illegal. You're still protecting us. I'm ensuring my mistakes don't continue hurting people I care about. His voice roughened. Aria, I know I have no right to ask this, but would you consider visiting me? After sentencing? Just once? Every rational instinct screamed that maintaining distance was smart and healthy and necessary for moving forward. But Aria found herself saying yes anyway, because Luca had loved her despite his lies and protected her despite their ending, and that deserved acknowledgement. Once, she agreed, after sentencing, to say a proper goodbye. Thank you. He sounded close to tears. That's more than I deserve, which seems to be your pattern with me. They hung up, and Aria returned to her interview, answering questions about journalism and accountability while her mind remained fixed on a prison visit she'd agreed to but wasn't certain she could handle. Luca's sentencing happened 6 weeks later, carried live on news channels because his case had become a symbol of white-collar crime and financial corruption. He received 8 years in federal prison, slightly more than his lawyers had predicted, but less than prosecutors had demanded. Aria watched him accept the sentence with composure, his expression revealing nothing as the judge outlined his crimes and their consequences. 2 weeks later, she visited him in federal detention, going through security protocols that stripped her of everything except identification and an approved amount of cash. The visiting room was institutional and depressing, designed to prevent comfort while allowing supervised interaction. Luca appeared in prison-issued clothing that hung loose on his frame, weight loss making him look older and more fragile than the man who'd rescued her 6 months earlier. Hi, he said, sitting across from her at a table scarred with carvings from previous visitors. Thank you for coming. Hi. Aria studied his face, cataloging changes in someone she'd thought she knew. How are you? Adjusting. Prison has rules, which is almost comforting after years of operating in spaces where everything's negotiable. He smiled without reaching his eyes. Plus, I've discovered I'm excellent at laundry. Who knew I had untapped domestic talents? You're terrible at laundry. You turned all your white shirts pink last month. That was once, and the washing machine instructions were deliberately confusing. He laughed, the sound genuine but sad. I miss debating laundry competence with you. I miss a lot of things. They fell into silence, watching each other across the scarred table. I'm sorry, Luca said finally, for lying, for manipulating, for letting you believe I was someone worth loving when I was just someone good at pretending. You were worth loving, Aria countered. That's what makes this so hard. The person you were with me, the moments we shared, those were real even if the context was lies. Were they enough? The real moments? No. Aria felt tears building but refused to look away. But they were something. They changed me in ways I'm still processing. Luca reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. Can I ask what you're planning to do? After this? Northwestern accepted me into their journalism program. Full scholarship. Apparently, my article about Sebastian caught their attention. Aria allowed herself a small smile. Turns out documenting systemic cruelty with rigorous evidence is exactly what they look for in investigative journalists. Luca's face transformed with genuine joy. The first real emotion she'd seen break through his prison composure. Aria, that's incredible. That's everything you wanted. Not everything, but it's a start. She finally reached across the remaining distance, letting their fingers touch on the scarred table surface. Mia's medications are stable. SafeNest is operating with clean funding. I'm starting school in the fall. Things are good, or they will be. I'm glad. His fingers curled around hers, warm and familiar despite the institutional cold surrounding them. You deserved good things all along. I'm sorry I complicated them with my mess. Your mess taught me things. About power, about corruption, about how people can be genuinely kind and deeply flawed simultaneously. Aria squeezed his hand once before pulling back. I don't forgive you, Luca, but I don't hate you either. I'm just moving forward. That's more grace than I deserve. He studied her face like he was memorizing details for the 8 years ahead. Will you write me? Occasionally? I'd like to know how your life unfolds, even from a distance. Aria considered refusing, maintaining clean boundaries that would let both of them move on completely. But something in his expression, the vulnerability beneath his careful control, made her relent. Occasionally, she agreed. No promises about frequency or content, but all right. That's enough. Luca smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. More than enough. A guard announced 5 minutes remaining, and they both tensed at the reminder of time's limitations. I should tell you something, Luca said quickly, urgency entering his tone. Sebastian's legal troubles aren't over. I provided federal investigators with evidence of his father's financial crimes before my arrest. Tax evasion, fraud, bribery. The Hale family empire is going to collapse, and Sebastian will be implicated. Aria stared at him. You gave them evidence? Why? Because he hurt you. Because he spent his entire life hurting people without consequences. Luca's expression hardened into something cold and calculating. I couldn't protect you from my own mistakes, but I could ensure Sebastian Hale faces accountability for his. Call it a going-away gift. That's vindictive. That's justice. He leaned forward. Sebastian filmed your humiliation for entertainment. He tried to destroy your livelihood because you witnessed his embarrassment. He built an entire identity around casual cruelty. I didn't fabricate evidence against him. I just provided documentation of crimes he actually committed. You're terrifying, Aria observed, though without real fear. I'm effective, Luca corrected. There's a distinction. The guard called time, and they both stood, the moment stretching with everything unsaid. Goodbye, Luca, Aria said, meaning it as finality. Goodbye, Aria. He held her gaze across the table. Thank you for seeing me as human despite excellent evidence to the contrary. That's a gift I'll carry through whatever comes next. Aria left without looking back, walked through security checkpoints and out into afternoon sunlight that felt too bright after the prison's fluorescent dimness. She cried in her car for 20 minutes, mourning the loss of something that never quite existed but felt real enough to break her heart anyway. Then she drove to SafeNest, where Monica was coordinating dinner service and Mia had started volunteering on weekends. How did it go? Mia asked carefully, reading Aria's expression. It went. Now it's done. Aria hugged her sister, anchoring herself in present reality rather than past complications. Want to help me start packing? Northwestern housing assignments came through yesterday. You're really leaving? I'm really moving forward. Aria smiled, feeling the truth of it settle into her bones. Staying here means staying stuck. I need to see what I can become somewhere else. Over the following months, Aria dismantled her old life and built something new. She moved to Northwestern, dove into investigative journalism with the intensity of someone who'd found her calling. She wrote about corruption, about power imbalances, about the systems that protected people like Sebastian, While crushing people like the service workers he'd humiliated, her work gained recognition. Awards, speaking invitations, job offers from major publications. Aria Chen was becoming someone in her own right, not defined by her relationship with Luca Vitale or her confrontation with Sebastian Hale, but by the quality of her work and the integrity of her reporting. She wrote to Luca occasionally, short letters about her life that carefully avoided anything too personal. He responded with longer letters that revealed prison was teaching him things about himself he'd avoided confronting, that forced isolation was clarifying his understanding of who he'd been and who he might become. Their correspondence remained cordial, almost friendly, like two people who'd shared something significant, now learning to exist as distant acquaintances. Meanwhile, Sebastian's world continued its spectacular implosion. Federal charges against his father led to investigations into Sebastian's own activities. Tax fraud, securities violations, witness intimidation. The evidence was overwhelming, provided by someone who understood exactly how to dismantle a financial empire from within. Sebastian was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, 4 years more than Luca had received. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Aria was in her second year at Northwestern when she received a letter from Sebastian, forwarded through her attorney, because she'd blocked all direct contact. The letter was surprisingly humble, stripped of the arrogance that had defined his personality. He apologized for the gala incident, for the harassment, for treating her like something disposable. He didn't ask for forgiveness or understanding, just acknowledged his wrongs with what seemed like genuine remorse. Aria read the letter 3 times, trying to determine if Sebastian's contrition was real or just another manipulation calculated to generate sympathy. She decided it didn't matter. Some things didn't require forgiveness to be set aside. Some people didn't deserve her emotional energy, regardless of how sorry they claimed to be. She filed Sebastian's letter without responding, let it join the archive of her past that she occasionally examined but refused to inhabit. 4 years into Luca's sentence, Aria received a call from his attorney. Luca was eligible for early release based on good behavior and cooperation with ongoing federal investigations. He'd be out in 6 months. He wanted you to know, the attorney explained, in case you needed time to prepare or preferred to avoid contact entirely. Aria sat with this information for 3 days, trying to determine what she felt beyond complicated. Finally, she wrote Luca a letter. I heard about your early release. Congratulations on surviving 4 years in an environment designed to break people. I imagine you're both relieved and terrified about re-entering the world. I've thought a lot about us over these years, about what we had, what we lost, what we never quite achieved. I've reached some conclusions that might interest you. You loved me. I believe that now in ways I couldn't when you were arrested. Your love was flawed and complicated by lies, but it was real. I loved you too. Past tense matters here. I loved who you were with me, even knowing much of it was constructed. We can't go back. Whatever we had exists in a past tense we can't recover, but maybe we can go forward differently. As friends, as people who share complicated history but aren't defined by it. When you're released, if you want to get coffee, I'll be there. No expectations. No romantic resurrection. Just 2 people who once mattered to each other learning if they can matter differently. Your choice. No pressure either direction. Aria, she mailed the letter before she could reconsider, then returned to her life of classes and articles, and slowly building the career she'd always dreamed of. Luca's response came 2 weeks later. Coffee sounds perfect. Terrifying but perfect. I promise no dramatic rescues, no financial manipulation, and absolutely no burnt pasta. Just honest conversation between 2 people trying to figure out who they've become. Thank you for not writing me off entirely. It's more grace than I've earned, but exactly the amount I needed. 6 months. I'm counting down in ways that feel both hopeful and completely inappropriate given our history. 6 months passed quickly, filled with Aria's final semester at Northwestern and thesis work on financial corruption in nonprofit organizations. She deliberately didn't track Luca's release date, didn't mark it on her calendar, didn't allow herself to anticipate or dread it. But when her phone rang from an unknown number on a Tuesday afternoon in April, she knew it was him before answering. "I'm out," Luca said, his voice rough from disuse or emotion. "And I'm terrified of every single thing about civilian life, but mostly I'm terrified of this phone call." "Hi, Luca," Aria said, smiling despite her nervousness. "Welcome back to the world. It's overwhelming. Everything's too loud and too fast, and I can't remember how to order coffee without sounding institutionalized." He laughed shakily. "Can we still meet? Or have you reconsidered now that it's real?" "We can meet. Same terrible coffee shop where we had our first date. Tomorrow at 3, if you can handle it. I can handle anything that ends with seeing you again." He paused. "That sounded more romantic than I intended. I'm relearning appropriate social boundaries. Please excuse the awkwardness." "Awkwardness is fine. Just show up and be honest." Aria felt her chest tighten with something between hope and terror. "That's all I'm asking." The next afternoon, Aria arrived at the coffee shop early, claiming their old corner table with good sightlines to all exits. She ordered black coffee and tried not to watch the door every 30 seconds. Luca appeared precisely at 3, looking older and leaner, and somehow more himself than he'd been 4 years ago. He spotted her immediately, his face transforming with relief and nervous joy. "Hi," he said, sliding into the seat across from her, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. "Hi." Aria studied him, cataloging changes and similarities. "You look good. Different, but good. Prison has excellent fitness facilities and terrible everything else." He gestured toward the counter. "Should I order coffee, or is that too normal for this surreal situation?" "Order coffee. Embrace the surreal." He returned with 2 cups of the same terrible coffee they'd shared years ago, setting one in front of Aria with careful formality. "So," Luca said, wrapping his hands around his cup. 4 years. You graduated. You're working for the Tribune. You won a journalism award for your series on financial crimes in non-profit organizations, which I read from prison and thought was both brilliant and a pointed commentary on our history." "It was brilliant," Aria agreed. "The commentary was unintentional, but appreciated. I've been out for exactly 1 day, and I already don't know how to exist in the world." Luca met her eyes, vulnerability written across his face. "I have a parole officer, restrictions on my movement, and approximately 0 marketable skills that aren't criminal. I'm terrified I'll disappoint you again just by virtue of being fundamentally damaged. Everyone's damaged, Luca. Prison doesn't have a monopoly on trauma." Aria reached across the table, stopping just short of touching his hand. "Tell me what you want. From life, from this conversation, from whatever we're attempting here. Honestly, I want to learn how to be a real person, not a criminal or a manipulator or someone who solves problems through intimidation." He stared at their almost touching hands. "I want to be someone you could respect. Maybe even like, in whatever capacity you're willing to offer. I can work with that." Aria closed the remaining distance, letting their fingers touch. "But I need honesty. Complete, uncomfortable, nothing held back honesty. No protecting me from difficult truths." "I can do that." Luca's fingers curled around hers. "It might be painful. Honesty usually is." They talked for 4 hours, coffee growing cold while they rebuilt understanding from fractured pieces. Luca told her about prison, about confronting the person he'd been and trying to envision someone better. Aria told him about Northwestern, about her career, about learning to define herself outside the crisis that had characterized her early 20s. "I missed you," Luca admitted, as afternoon light slanted golden through windows. "Every day for 4 years, I missed you. Not just romantically, though that too. I missed your mind, your humor, the way you challenged me to be better than I was." "I missed you too," Aria confessed, "which frustrated me endlessly because I wanted to be over you completely." "Are you over me completely?" Aria considered lying, then remembered her demand for honesty. "No, but I'm also not the person I was 4 years ago. Neither are you. We're different people having a different conversation. Different can be good. Different can be anything. We get to decide what we make of it. Luca smiled, genuine and warm and cautiously hopeful. So we're trying friendship? With potential for more if we don't catastrophically fail? We're trying honesty and seeing where it leads. Aria squeezed his hand. No expectations. No predetermined outcomes. Just two complicated people attempting uncomplicated connection. That sounds impossibly difficult. Probably, but we're both stubborn enough to make difficult work. They left the coffee shop as the sun set, walking through the city without destination. Luca noticed everything with the heightened awareness of someone relearning freedom, pointing out details Aria had stopped seeing years ago. "Everything's different," he observed, stopping at a corner where a new restaurant had replaced an old bookstore. "The entire world kept changing while I was frozen." "That's how time works," Aria said gently. "The world doesn't pause for anyone's incarceration. Root of it, honestly." Luca turned to her, expression serious. "Can I see you again? Tomorrow? Or is this a once-monthly thing to prevent overwhelming you?" "Tomorrow works. But Luca, I need you to understand something." Aria faced him fully, making sure he saw her certainty. "I'm not rescuing you. I'm not fixing you. I'm not responsible for your rehabilitation or your happiness. I'm just showing up as myself and hoping you show up as yourself, and we'll see if that's enough." "It's enough," he said immediately. "More than enough." They parted at the train station, Aria heading north to her apartment, while Luca headed to the halfway house that would be his home for the next 6 months. "Good night, Aria Chen," Luca said, holding her gaze in the station's fluorescent lighting. "Good night, Luca Vitale," she responded. "Try not to catastrophically spiral before tomorrow. No promises, but I'll make an effort." She watched him disappear into the crowd, then boarded her train home, where Mia was waiting with questions and concern. "How was it?" Mia asked immediately. "Complicated, hopeful, terrifying." Aria collapsed onto their couch. "He's different. I'm different. We're trying to figure out if our different versions can coexist. Do you think they can?" "I don't know." Aria stared at the ceiling. "But I think I want to find out." Over the following months, Aria and Luca rebuilt connection piece by careful piece. Coffee evolved into dinners, evolved into long walks where they talked about everything and nothing. Luca found work doing financial consulting for nonprofits, applying his skills toward legitimate purposes with the zealousness of someone trying to atone. He was different. Softer but somehow stronger, like prison had burned away the performance and left someone more authentic beneath. He attended therapy twice a week, talked openly about his struggles with reintegration, and never once tried to minimize the damage he'd caused. Aria watched him rebuild his life with the same intensity he'd once applied to criminal enterprises, channeling that focus towards something better. "I got a job offer," Luca announced one evening over dinner in Aria's kitchen. He'd learned to cook properly, a skill acquired through prison work programs and genuine determination. "Nonprofit financial reform. They want me to design systems that prevent the kind of manipulation I used to do." "That's perfect." Aria tasted the pasta he'd made, genuinely edible this time. "And ironic, poetic even. The criminal becomes the watchdog." He studied her expression. "Are you proud of me? Or is that too much to ask given our history?" "I'm proud of you," Aria admitted, "which is complicated and maybe inappropriate, but true." "Can I kiss you?" Luca asked suddenly, setting down his fork. "I know we've been taking things slow, and I respect that completely, but I've been wanting to kiss you for 6 months, and the wanting is becoming distracting." Aria's heart raced. "That's the most honest request you've ever made. Therapy is teaching me directness. So yes or no, because I can handle either answer as long as it's real." She answered by closing the distance between them, pressing her lips to his with 4 years of complicated history and fragile hope behind it. Luca responded carefully, his hands coming up to cup her face with gentleness that felt earned through suffering. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads resting together. "That was—" Luca trailed off, searching for words. "Different," Aria supplied. "Better," he corrected. "Better because it's built on honesty instead of lies. No pressure, but what are we doing? Aria pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Define this so I know what I'm investing in. We're trying. We're building something real from the ashes of something complicated. We're learning if love can exist without manipulation. Luca's thumb traced her cheekbone. No kingdoms. No impetus. Just us figuring out if we work when everything's honest. Just us, Aria echoed, liking the sound of it. 6 months later, Luca stood in Aria's kitchen attempting breakfast with variable success. He'd moved into his own apartment, 3 blocks away, close enough for spontaneity, but separate enough to maintain independence. They'd found a rhythm that worked. Intimacy balanced with autonomy. Honesty balanced with kindness. I have something for you, Luca announced, setting aside his failing attempt at pancakes. Close your eyes. That's ominous. Trust me. Which I recognize as loaded language given our history, but still. Aria closed her eyes, heard rustling, then felt Luca take her hand. Okay, open. She looked down to find him kneeling on her kitchen floor. No ring in sight, just his hand holding hers. This isn't a proposal, Luca said quickly. Not in the traditional sense, but I wanted to ask you something important in a way that communicates how seriously I take it. You're kneeling in my kitchen at 7 a.m. without a ring. I'm very confused. Will you keep building this with me? He looked up at her with absolute vulnerability. No guarantees about forever, because we're both too smart for that. But will you keep choosing this, choosing us, choosing the messy, honest, complicated thing we've made? That's not a proposal. It's a commitment to continued commitment. I'm asking you to partner with me in building something real. No kingdoms, no impetus, just us learning to be better together than we were separately. Aria pulled him to his feet, wrapping her arms around him. Yes, to all of it. The mess, the honesty, the complicated partnership. Yes. They stood in her kitchen, morning light streaming through windows while pancakes burned on the stove, and Aria felt something settle in her chest. Not happily ever after, because life was too complicated for fairy tale endings, but something real and earned and worth protecting. Your pancakes are on fire, she observed. Damn it. Luca rushed to the stove, rescuing breakfast with the frantic energy of someone still learning domestic competence. This is why we should just order food like civilized people. Where's the fun in that? Aria joined him at the stove, helping salvage what they could. Besides, watching you fail at cooking is one of my favorite activities. My incompetence is not entertainment. It absolutely is. They laughed, and in that moment, Aria understood that this was it. Not perfect romance or dramatic redemption, but real partnership built from honesty and effort, and the willingness to keep choosing each other despite all the reasons not to. No ballrooms. No public humiliations. No wine-stained uniforms or prison sentences. Just 2 people who'd found each other in crisis and chose to stay through the aftermath, building something better than either had imagined possible. I love you, Aria said, meaning it in all its complicated glory. I love you, Luca responded, meeting her eyes. Honestly, completely. With full awareness that love is work and we're both still learning. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said. I'm evolving, he kissed her forehead. Though I'm still terrible at pancakes. We'll work on it, together. Together, Luca agreed, and the word felt like a promise they both intended to keep. Outside Aria's kitchen window, the city woke up slowly, millions of lives unfolding in parallel stories of hope and heartbreak and everything between. Somewhere out there, Sebastian Hale was serving his sentence. Monica was opening Safe Nest for another day of helping people rebuild. Mia was probably sleeping through her alarm, requiring her sister's intervention to make it to class. The world kept turning, indifferent to individual dramas, which was somehow comforting. Aria and Luca existed in their small corner of that turning world, building something quiet and real from the spectacular wreckage of their beginning. And for now, for today, that was enough. If this story kept you hooked, don't forget to smash that like button and drop a comment below, telling me what you thought about Luca and Aria's journey. Would you have given him a second chance? And hey, subscribe if you want more stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat because trust me, we've got plenty more where this came from. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.